neither am I. Let's find out.
Okay, do we want to start?
Predictable.
Do we want to start with the light one or the heavy one?
Let's start with the light one.
All right. So Soken recently did an interview over at Inverse.com. And, I mean, nothing groundbreaking gets dropped here, but I think I had more fun reading this interview than I've had reading a lot of interviews with Yoshi P in the past. Like, nothing in this interview angered me. I can say that right now. So
is it because you've heard it all before from Yoshi P and now you're just like, fine, I know that he's a fucking sellout. I just know that the answers that he's going to give are going to be unsatisfactory and they're going to piss me off.
Particularly in the Yoshi P interview that we're going to be doing today, some of the stuff that he says is in direct opposition to the actions they've been taking since day one.
Dude, he does that. He'll say one thing and then do another. That's why
it's never been as clear it is with this interview, though.
But that's the thing. We figured it out. We figured out his pattern of behavior. It's taken 3 fucking years, but we've overcome a language barrier, and we're now... Listen, if you want the most insightful show about where FF14 is going to be going in the future, you want Limit Break Radio. If you want shows that will only placate you and tell you things that you want to hear because your little delicate flower ears can't stand to hear other opinions, then guess what? You have tons of choices on wherever the fuck you want to go. There's plenty of other shows that'll do that. But we're going to tell you every single time what we think they're going to do, what we think Square Enix is going to do. And our track record so far,
pretty good,
has been pretty fucking spot on. Our prediction record has been pretty on the nose. So, you know, dude, I think that's part of it. We have really identified the pattern of behavior on the part of Square Enix and the way that they market this game, and we found out which parts are disingenuous. And unfortunately, as much slack as we want to cut Square Enix, as much slack as we want to cut FF14, because we like the product, we like the game, we like the company, I think at some point we have to be honest with ourselves and just admit that this is not the same game that we all signed up for in 2012, 2013 when it came back up.
And can we issue a challenge, I guess, for the times that we called out on Yoshi's bullshit? If you can find an instance when we were pretty clearly wrong, we'll give you an award or something. We'll give you something because we haven't had an actual contest.
Dude, we haven't had a giveaway. Dude, I feel honestly, and this is part of the reason why I felt compelled to apologize, not just to you guys, but to the audience for on the part of my depression, right? Not excusing the depression, but just apologizing for it. Part of the reason that I felt compelled to do that, I think, is because I realized that there have been a lot of ways that I've been very selfish, right? Like, we've always been critical of FF14, and I think more recently the show has taken a bit more of a darker turn, a darker note, because none of us know where the future is going to go, because we keep basing our expectations off of a Square Enix that doesn't exist.
Oh, that hurts.
We keep basing our expectations off of a development team that got demolished. And the fact of the matter is that this development team proved themselves once and then has failed on 2 other occasions to prove their creative chops. Mm-hmm. Fair?
Yeah.
If anyone disagrees with me, for the love of God, I want you to call me out on it. I promise I won't even be defensive. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. If I'm wrong, I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong. And now you're catching me at a good moment because I'm in an open and receptive mood to feedback. Normally I'm not. Normally I've got my defense up. Normally I've got my guard up. And if anyone tries to tell me I'm wrong, fuck you.
Not today.
Not today.
Not today.
Not so today. Okay? So if you want to, I'm just saying, today's a very good day if you want to do it. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. Is there a thought in the back of your head that when you think about calling up the show and expressing the opinion makes you a little bit scared? That's okay. I can be an intimidating guy. I know that. I know that more when I'm clear-headed than when I'm not. But that I think that today would be a good day to do that, because I promise you, I make this promise right here, right now, that I will not yell at you. I don't make promise. I've been good at figuring out what kinds of promises I can make and subsequently keep, and what I can't.
I promise.
Okay, so for today, I promise to be receptive to it. It's not a trap, I promise.
All right, we're going to try and ride out these good waves with the nice interview. Again, this is Soken at Inverse.com. So the first question asked was, how did you get involved with the Final Fantasy franchise? And I think that this answer really kind of goes to show what kind of person Soken is and why he was able to achieve that, I think, nearly 300-song Guinness Book World Records in MMOs, because I think that's what this whole story led with. So he said, when I first came to Square Enix, my main responsibilities focused on sound effects creation, sound schematic designs, and other sound engineering work. Now, generally, multiple people would handle these things, but I really wanted to achieve something specific with my ideal sound, so I enjoyed doing these tasks alone. Shortly after joining the company, I began to oversee small to mid-scale sound projects for our titles. I was often asked to create musical tracks as well, so I would compose music for these projects on the side, and I was eventually assigned to supervise sound on Final Fantasy XIV, and then took over composing with A Realm Reborn. What do you guys think?
It's a pretty good answer. Shows that he has dedication to Final Fantasy 14.
The thing that really jumps out, and not just a 14, because he was with Square Enix.
14 in general, or not 14. Final Fantasy. Fuck.
Yes, but the part that really joined out to me was the fact that he's like, look, normally this is something that multiple people handle, like a whole team handles, and he's just from the beginning was like, no, I want to do this on my own.
Yeah, I think something that maybe we lose sight of is that Uematsu used to have tons of pull at that company. And so, because, when you have a lot of pull, you can convince people to dedicate a lot of resources to whatever project you want to do. And if I had to guess what the split between Uematsu and Square Enix was, is that Square Enix probably couldn't afford him. They probably couldn't afford to keep him for what he wanted to do. That's why he only comes back.
Everyone, 1-2 songs?
Maybe. Not even that. Square Enix moved away from, they tried to ice him out. Think about it. I don't think he composed hardly anything for FF13. I think he just had the title track.
Not really.
Yeah.
That's it. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe Uematsu finally realized his value and said, "Nah, fuck you, pay me."
Yeah, because because for FF15 was the same composer as Kingdom Hearts, and then Uematsu has done the title theme for the multiplayer expansion for 15. But because other than that, I don't know what he's done other than 14's main themes.
He didn't do anything else in 15's main game?
Not that I can think of.
Oh, that's probably why
I know
none
that
of the
most
music
of
stood
it,
out to
if
me.
not all of it, was composed by the Kingdom Hearts composer, which is fantastic. I love all the music in 15. It's very good.
Of course.
But that's the thing. When you're legendary composer Nobuo Uematsu, right? You can do shit that normal, regular, everyday, I'm fighting for my shot composers can do. I mean, this is a natural thing, right? Uematsu made his name and his price went up. Square Enix couldn't afford to pay him. Or, I mean, who knows?
Allegedly.
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows how much he made from Square Enix? But I think, it can only be left up to speculation. And I think that that's a pretty good working theory. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Let me know. Call us. Limit Break Radio on Skype.
Old and tired.
515-8715.
Wow, way to be ageist.
No, seriously, I think he's done a lot for this company. I think he's kind of just burnt out.
He's done a lot for the industry.
He still goes to Distant Worlds concerts.
But he's not retired
in these things.
Yeah.
He's not retired. And then he pops out of the works for doing the main theme for Comrades, and then he disappears again until he feels like he's ready to do something else.
He's like Batman.
He's the Batman of video game music. Next question. How important is music to Final Fantasy? And he said, sound is an integral and inseparable part of video games. A game's soundtrack is a wonderful spice that drives the emotional control of gameplay experience. And he says, in the case of the Final Fantasy series, the emotion we want to impart on the user drives the overall sound of the Final Fantasy games.
I think that's kind of a neat insight. I mean,
I thought that was one of my favorite quotes out of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, especially because I have such an attachment to sound. I think what else he's kind of alluding to here is that, like, game soundtracks used to be the entirety of the sound that you would hear in a game. Like, you would have some effects limited by the cartridge space, and then you would have your background music, and sometimes those were the only things that you could have to move it along.
And what I've always appreciated about Final Fantasy games, and obviously there are a lot more notable titles that do it now, but I think it definitely started with Final Fantasy, is that when you listen to an entire OST from song to song, even when they vary wildly, there's still this I think emotion might be the best word for it, but there's something that connects all of them together. They feel like they all mesh together, and they're not just like a Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, which, while awesome, it's just a bunch of different songs.
Yeah. No, and I think Square Enix might be a good example of what happens when you don't pay attention to your audience. Like, I feel like Square Enix always kind of had problems listening to their audience and communicating with their audience, and then suddenly social media happened, and they were like, we got to figure out ways to communicate, and none of it was meaningful, though.
No.
Like, I think that speaks more to the culture at the company than it does to any one person's job.
What's the most memorable and important song of the franchise? Unsurprisingly, he mentions Prelude and and the Final Fantasy theme. But what I did like about these answers specifically is that he mentions that in every iteration, because again, we hear Prelude and we hear Final Fantasy, the main theme, in every single Final Fantasy game there is, period. But they're always done in a different way that really sort of captures the essence of that game.
Recently we had the opportunity to sit down with Distant Worlds conductor Arnie Roth, and we actually had a very similar question for him.
We asked him what his favorite was.
Yeah, about which of the Final Fantasy songs are his favorite. So here's the thing. We're going to be featuring that interview on Checkpoint Radio. So if you want to hear it, you've got to make sure to be...
What was his answer?
Well, but I'm not going to... If I gave away the answer, then why would you listen to the show? Got to listen to it, checkpointradio.com. And that's going to be probably this week. I want to say that's when that interview is going to be... going up. So you guys can look forward to that.
So this next question, I'm going to want both Aniro and Nika's feedback since you guys played 1.0. But the question was, what were some of the greatest challenges composing music for Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn? Soken said that FF14 challenged the unthinkable by rebuilding a game from scratch while continuing live operations of the original. The sound design too had to undergo the same process of continuing to update the live game's sound while also creating sound for the new in-development version. That task in and of itself was quite challenging because at the same time, bringing closure to the original game and creating a brand new sound for A Realm Reborn was a very exciting prospect. We had to create music that would help to clear any stigma that may have been associated with the original, while also creating a sound with not only a completely new image, but also a traditional fantasy game vibe. So the question is, do you think that they did well in creating a new sound that was still Final Fantasy XIV, but also differentiated itself from 1.0?
From 1.0 specifically?
Yes.
Yeah, from 1.0.
Because
are we talking? We're not talking about Stormblood specifically. We're talking about 2.0 and onward, right?
Yes. Basically, when A Realm Reborn, because I think it was Nobuo who did most of the stuff in 1.0, and then Soken took over for 2.0.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically the question is, what was the challenge? And he was like, look, making music is one thing, but making music for a game that already has an image and that's technically already still live, while also having to come up with something new to differentiate from the failed version was a big challenge.
Yeah, I can see that. I could absolutely see that. And I think that Soken is his talent is on display, rising to that challenge. Yeah, you have an entire game's worth of a soundtrack, and now what do? You want the problem there is, and I think that Soken very aptly identifies it right here, is that your main challenge is to make the new stuff thread in with the old stuff
while avoiding the stigma of failure
in a way that seems seamless. And right, yes, that's true. You do want to avoid the stigma of failure. Maybe that's one of the calculations that Square Enix was relying too heavily on, was trying to distance themselves from the failure because, wow, this is interesting, because if you're trying to distance yourself from the failure of 1.0, naturally you're going to devalue the players that were at the 1.0 stage. Now, what I think may be happening, and this is really interesting, is that theory is coming back to bite them in the ass, and their fear of repeating failure is on display in the way that they repeat content and do not vary their content. They realize, listen, I think that as an MMO developer, you have to account for the fact that after you launch, your community and the people who play the game are going to very slowly erode. And there are one of two ways that you can approach this. And actually, I think this actually lends a little bit of insight into the entire psychology behind the whole of the FF14 development process. If you're too afraid of failure, of repeating failure, to vary up your methods and vary up your approach, that's what lends to a very stale environment and a very stale game. I think that may be something that, I maybe just identified about my own life recently.
We are super woke right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that's a good punchline, but
it's not
wrong.
It's also super
it's
real.
Also kind of right.
Yeah,
super they're also kind of hidden on something there. Really, really interesting, and actually, I think that gives me pause about how hard I end up hammering Square Enix and Stormblood, because yes, while I did not like Stormblood, and I do think that opinion needs to be out there and that people need to hold to it and not be thrown from it, as I have kind of demonstrated over time. I do also think that fear of failure probably should be one of the calculations that we insert into our equation when trying to discern the moves of Square Enix.
Oh, you just gave them a little slack.
Well, the thing is that, and this is why I'm glad that we examined this interview, is that I don't know that insight could possibly come from Yoshi P. I don't know that he's allowed to be able to express that kind of thing, whether it's because of a self-imposed thing because of his position, or whether that's a corporate culture thing. I don't know. Could be either. Both are valid. But I do think that that would be a much more taboo opinion, or much more taboo thing for someone like Yoshi P to say, and that Soken is really giving us a bit of a peek into the thought process that goes in. And maybe, you know what, the other thing is that maybe Yoshi P is too close. His perspective is too close. He's lost his perspective on these kinds of things. That can happen. That can happen a lot.
The next question was, how did the music grow or change from 1.0 to 2.0? And Soken said, by starting with a clean slate for the game design, I was able to do an overhaul on the sound schematics and sound engine. As a result, I was able to integrate music more effectively into the overall game. I composed the songs for Realm Reborn while specifically considering the new gameplay design and game elements, and they have become songs that our players have now come to love. And as a creator, this makes me so happy.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I have to wonder if the software that he's working with is like proprietary, if that's something that Square Enix developed in-house.
Wouldn't surprise me given their history.
Well, the thing is, though, is that takes constant updating.
Yeah?
And I mean, as Square Enix figured out with the Crystal Tools engine, they're not able to keep up with that.
Not always. That's true. Yeah.
They can keep up with some things, but not other things.
Yep.
So, putting things together on air, all of us together. By the way, if you want to give us a call and you want to let us into some insight that you're getting from these interviews, Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord.
Yep. So this next question, again, gives us a major insight into the type of man and work ethic that Soken has. How did the game come to have so many different songs? He says, even after all this time, I have never been given a specific order from anybody to create lots of songs for the game. It's just that when I feel that I need a new song for a certain piece of content, I create a song for it on my own and then implement it into the game without being asked. Before I knew it, there were already a massive number of songs in the game.
You know, when you're your own boss, when you're not given any direction, you end up doing a lot more work. I figured that out. I figured that out the fucking hard way.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that the job? Because that's the only job I was fired at. I was kind of my own boss. I was just like, I had this thing to like watch and monitor, but you're supposed to like go and find more like truckloads for deliveries and stuff. Yeah, I just watched YouTube videos all day, and then I got fired the week of Thanksgiving.
Why do you think that is?
What?
Because you just haven't watched YouTube videos.
Yeah. I'm just saying, when you're your own boss, I didn't do more work. I did less work.
There are two types of people in this world.
Well, then technically
Ones
you
who
weren't. Wait, hang
understand
on.
binary and
hang
ones
on.
who don't.
Technically, you weren't your own boss.
What do you mean?
If someone fired you, you weren't your own fucking boss.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying you had your own direction. Well, technically, Soken's not his own boss.
Right. Okay. So I made a misnomer there.
Yeah.
Where I didn't mean to say.
You've known that, Miss Lee.
God damn it. When I said that, I forget what I said.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Hey,
God
can I have $25 out of the equipment fund? Because when I was in Toys R Us yesterday, they had a massive Nerf gun with like 2,000 bullets on sale for $25.
What, you want to keep that over there and fire it at Juxta every time he says something dumb?
Yeah.
You're going to break the equipment.
With $25? Firing a styrofoam dart at you?
Yeah, you're going to break something over here.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think you might be right. I think Juxta might be right. Because here's the thing. Here's what I foresee.
I see you on Tracer. You're a terrible aim.
Here's what I foresee happening, okay? Here's what I foresee, is that you're going to whip out the gun, and you're going to go to shoot him. He's going to want to dodge, and he's going to take the entire desk with him.
Okay,
because
all right,
he's like,
fair.
he doesn't know his own size.
Fair. So I didn't break it with the gun, but his reaction breaks
Right,
something.
yes, let's just game this whole
You're
situation
right.
out.
You're right.
Let's think about it logically.
Because he's so
But
fat.
because you started the chain of events, it's your fault.
You are literally a rampaging hippopotamus.
Listen, what I'm saying is that
Rhino.
your reaction to something like even something as innocuous and not harmful, objectively not harmful, as a dart gun,
Shot by Kahlo.
would turn you into a bull in a china shop.
Cow in a china shop.
The
It's more feminine.
blob in a china shop?
Okay, there you go. I like that.
I mean, the Marvel
Nothing-
character, the blob.
Right,
not-
right,
okay.
right.
Blob.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
Fat jokes.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question was actually a really exciting question, but I was actually kind of disappointed with the answer. It was, what's your favorite song in the game and why? And he names Imagination, which you hear during the final battle in The Realm Reborn, and Rise, which you hear during the latter half of the Alexander. I was really hoping for like a really cool story behind these, but he said that the reason is that he thinks they sound cool.
Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
Thanks, Soken. We think so too.
Listen. I like this interview mostly because I'm also somewhat of a sound engineer, and he's like kind of talking about things that I get.
I was gonna say that that was the other reason that I wanted to talk about this on the show. A lot of people might think, oh, a music interview, big deal, but with your background, I really wanted some of your input on some
Your
of this
ranks in
stuff.
audiomancy.
Well, yeah.
As a
that's
veteran
fair.
audiomancer.
Yes, that's right.
Grandmaster audio.
Grandmaster audio
Audiomancer.
wizard, audiomancer, whatever.
So
Did I just make that weirdly subliminally racial?
Yeah, you're kind of racist.
Oh,
Yeah, a little bit.
Boo.
They also asked, when we say Final Fantasy, we think Nobuo Uematsu, and they asked how Nobuo has influenced his work. He says, I really do believe that Final Fantasy music equates to Mr. Uematsu's music, as we use, obviously, some of his pieces in Final Fantasy XIV. I approach arrangement of these pieces by thinking to myself, how would I arrange this piece to make it resonate if I were implementing the song into a modern game? Then I execute. Mr. Uematsu's songs are inseparable from my creative process, and he has had a major influence on my work. I think I've always also been influenced by him on a human level as well. I sometimes put a lot of focus into things that may not necessarily need it, and I also never fail to do something funny after a few drinks.
This is why
Like punch a fat cat.
dude, this is why I love Soken, because he just seems like a dude that you can hang out with.
He seems real.
Yeah, like that's one of the things is that some of these folks are just so cold and unapproachable and not likable. That's the thing is that
Nika, when he punched your fat cat, did you smell sake on his breath?
No, but I guess I wasn't really looking for it. But
it stands to mention that I think a lot of people who kind of struggle with functional depression cover that with drinking or a whole bunch of other things.
I
use
drugs,
overworking themselves.
I smoke a lot of pot and I work a lot. Yeah, and that puts a lot of things between me and actually thinking about my bullshit. And professionals do that too, man. Like everyone does it, and it's a straight up coping mechanism. Yeah,
in some cases,
a coping mechanism is actually something that's even worse than a coping mechanism, but they're also the same things.
Used for the same purposes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, the thing is though, is that like-minded people just want to find each other. Damaged people just want to find each other. I like hanging out with people that can drink. I like hanging out with people that can, that and can still be functional. Soken is a good example of that.
That's an important part right there.
That's right.
And still be functional.
That's right.
I like finding and hanging out with people who play card games.
But what I'm talking about with the real thing is that like Soken, because of I think his position as like a music director, doesn't have to have the same level of professional presentation that someone like Yoshi P has to have.
And it seems like he just does a lot of his own stuff too, so he doesn't have to worry about getting bogged down as like the boss of a team or something like that. He just gets to be Soken.
Like I think someone who has a strong sense of themselves like that, if they're put in a leadership position, that they tend to they tend to figure it out faster about like who they are, what they want, the direction for it to be, and then hold to that and hold steadfastly to that.
Mm-hmm. The last question was, what's your future involvement with FF14 and the Final Fantasy series looks like? And he said that he doesn't have much time to think about the future because he's working so much. Every single day I'm working for the latest patch updates, and then there's even more work when we have a new expansion. After that, I'm working to put together the highly demanded OST albums, working on the sheet music for the orchestra concert, making preparations for a Primals performance, creating sounds for a new trailer.
Jesus.
While also doing audio post-production for a TV spot. So many things to do.
Dude.
Oh, and that reminds me, I need to input all of my work hours into the system too.
Oh my god. Dude, he's responsible for a lot. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, and he probably elected for that too, as early in the interview he mentioned when he first started just working on like sound engineering and stuff, he wanted to do it all himself.
Yeah.
Whew.
I think a lot
Learn
of us
to delegate, bro.
Well, I mean, that's something that you have to learn and have comfort with the people that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that. I struggle with delegating. You guys know that.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't know. It just seems like in the chat, hey, person in the chat, go do this thing for me.
Yeah, so imagine all the stuff that he's not having us do.
Exactly.
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to imagine that.
Just imagine.
I'm focusing on the things he does make us delegate to.
I mean, honestly, if I made a list of my responsibilities between Beasley, between Checkpoint, and between LBR and FEC.
Let's complain about it.
I'm not complaining. I'm just saying.
Doesn't though.
I'm just saying. You
Let's
guys
complain about it.
You know who does complain about it? Juxta.
He sure does. Hey, let's talk about complaining here for a second.
Let's complain
Because
about
Let's complain about
okay, now
complaining
you're overusing the drops, and I gotta take them away. Okay,
Take away your toys.
yeah.
Oh.
Listen, okay, let's talk about complaining here for a second, because the minute that I tuned in to Kahlo's Extra Life stream, which, by the way, good job on.
Thank you.
The minute I tune in to Kahlo's Extra Life stream, what do I hear but Juxta sitting around playing Overwatch, bitching about how to figure out how to subscribe to YouTube Red.
Right?
It took me all of 13 seconds.
Okay, well, you weren't trying to dodge a tracer on your ass the whole time.
Fuck, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Take a little bit of time and set it aside and figure it out. It'll take, I promise you, it'll take quantifiably less.
YouTube Red subscription. And the thing that popped up was not a YouTube Red subscription link. So I don't know what else you wanted me to do.
Look at how lazy Google has made us. If it's not the first search result on Google, it must not exist.
To be fair, it wasn't the
Fucking
second one
Google.
or third one. And after
Fucking
that,
Google.
everybody knows those next bunch of ads are just like porn or Trojans or something.
Seriously, there were listeners in that match. There were listeners that were playing with you, and I actually had to get up off of my somewhat recovering depressed ass and go, fuck it, I'll do it. Because I couldn't listen to you complain about it one more fucking time.
Lick my balls.
Yeah, your drops are still muted.
I didn't hear that drop. Could you try it again?
You want to know why your drops are still muted, you dumb piece of shit?
Lick my balls.
It's because you can't use them responsibly. That's right. Daddy Nero has to make his appearance back into the show.
It's like doesn't even matter which one I click on. They all don't work.
None of them work. That's on purpose.
Okay, guys. Okay. As fun as this is, do we all want to get depressed now?
No, I just worked myself out of depression.
I know.
No.
I know.
What? Tell me.
All right.